Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. We'd like to thank our sponsor, iZotope, the absolute leaders in intuitively designed plugins for audio restoration, mixing, and mastering. At iZotope.com, you'll find a plethora of tools and suites that will enhance your audio production, whether it's voice, video, podcast, or a full production recording session. Check out the industry standard audio repair tool, RX11, or the multi-tool mixer plugin, Neutron 5, or the powerful Ozone 11 mastering suite, plus tons more. Go to iZotope.com and use the code FRET10 at checkout for 10% off. That's FRET10 to get 10% off at checkout. And again, the website is iZotope.com, IZOTOPE.com.
I mean, I'll never change my nylon strings again. Like I did it maybe I did it like 2 years ago, and I was just like, this is horrible.
What's happening? Thank you so much for tuning in to Hyphenate with me, your host, Randy Randall. This is our show for Thursday, April 3rd. Hope everybody had a good April Fool's Day this week. For all of you that celebrate April Fools out there. It's a funny one. Being a father of young kids, April Fools is a very big deal. Lots of prime joke playing days. It's always a funnier thing too, just to have, all of the weird products announced and like, oh wait, I would buy, like I've learned like, okay, you can't buy anything on April Fools. Everyone announces funny products, but some of the stuff, I'm susceptible to all of the fooling that can happen on the April 1st days. Today on the show, I am very excited to welcome my good friend, Ms. Shannon Lay. I've known Shannon for a bunch of years, and we've collaborated on projects that I don't think ever really came to light, but it was really fun. I had her as a guest on the original incarnation of this show, which was like a Vans streaming show for in the height of the pandemic. The Vans skate shoe company. I don't know if I really even talked about this on this show, but the idea for the show, the Hyphenate idea, kind of originated from this streaming show I did at the Vans store in downtown LA at the height of COVID. It was such a funny time when they were, I think launching this kind of flagship store downtown, and obviously COVID came up, and I guess the good people at Vans had enough budget set aside that they could hire local musicians and people and creatives to host these cool like streaming music shows. I don't think they were archived anywhere. I think they were recorded, but I don't think they ever exist. It was called Channel 66, I think. It was a really fun thing to do, and I kind of got the bug for talking on the microphone, interviewing people, and that's sort of what kicked off this whole idea, and even the Hyphenate idea of talking to people who did more than one thing. I talked to skaters and photographers and filmmakers and musicians and people that did more than one thing. And Shannon came on and talked about making ceramics and pottery then, and also being a badass guitarist and songwriter, singer. So she definitely qualifies, but she was one of the OGs. I think I had Ray Barbie on then too. There was a handful of, I probably did it for like 6 months, 8 months. I don't know how long it lasted. I think it was once a month. It feels like all a dream. So many of those things and those pandemic moments of like, wait, what happened? When was that? Was that 3 years ago? Was that 8 years ago? I can't even keep track of it in my head. But there was a time and place when that had happened, and that's what sort of gave birth to this version of the show. So it's fun to come full circle and to have Shannon on again. live here on the Hyphenate podcast version of it. And she's got a bunch of shows coming up. I think she's working on a new record. She had a great record that just came out, about a year ago, 2 years ago. Again, time's just kind of lost on me, but you can go to her Instagram, Shanny2Dope. That's SHANNY, the numeral 2 and dope, DOPE. Shanny2Dope on Instagram to follow her there and see all of the shows she has coming up and the songs she posts there. She also has an incredible website, shannonlay.com. Very easy, SHANNONLAY.com, as well as a Bandcamp, shannonlay.bandcamp.com. Go there, buy her music, support her, go see the shows, go buy a piece of pottery or ceramics at a live show. We talk about it here in the interview that she will bring ceramics to sell at the merch booth. And you can get original, one-of-a-kind, hand-thrown pieces, designed, created, sculpted, fired by Miss Lay herself. So go support live music, support independent artists, and good people. Shannon Lay is one of them. All right, now to our interview. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on Hyphenate. How are you? How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
You too.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for making the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. What are you up to today? What are you working on?
I'm going to go sell some vintage clothes today. And I just had therapy. Very chill day.
Fun. That's great. Yeah, I know you are very much one of the true definitions of the hyphenate. I think of in the ceramics industry. You are a titan of. Are there categories of ceramics? I mean, what are you considered? Is it pottery not the correct term, or I'm novice to the ceramic world. How do you describe what you do in ceramics?
I guess if I had to put myself in a category, it would just be like functional ceramics. I really like making stuff that people can use. I think there's also like, you could do like sculptural stuff or more just like, like less, I think there's like functional and like less functional or something.
abstract ceramicisms.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So functional I've been enjoying a few coffee cups or teacups that you've made. I like those.
Totally.
And then there's also, I think there was a vase, a failed vase throw. Sort of became its own sort of abstracted sort of piece.
Yeah.
So it's within that world, the functional world of kind of handheld devices. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
That's so fun. How did you first get into ceramics?
It had just been nagging me for maybe like 2 years. It was always in the back of my mind to try it. And I think those kinds of inclinations are so fun because it's just the universe being like, yo, you got to get in here and get down with this.
Did you know other people that did it, or had you seen people do it? Or I guess I don't even think about ceramics that kind of way outside of Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze
I think the time when I was like, okay, I really got to try this. I went to like a market and there was just, a lot of people selling ceramics. And I was so inspired by this one cup in particular. It was just like such a beautiful little vessel. And I was like, oh, I want to make these. And then I signed up for classes at this great place in Altadena called Green and Bisque. And I took like 5 private lessons there, and it gave me everything I needed to know to get started with it. And then I found a wheel really quickly. Like it really like wanted to be a part of my life. So it was cool to like watch it all go down. It was very nice.
That's incredible. And then I guess the other big part of it is the kiln, right? The firing and the heat.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Is that something that you have to go to a studio or have to have a facility for that? It's not something you can do in home.
Yeah, that helps to have a studio for me because I don't have like the power for a kiln. You need 220 power. So since I rent, I would love to ask about upgrading my power. I think it'd be cool because like having a kiln is a big advantage. You can get a lot done. But I fire at this other studio called Cobalt and Clay in Frogtown, and it's so chill. You just drop your stuff off, and I just signed up to do so I could use their glazes because I just
Cool.
took a class at Pasadena City College and totally fell in love with glazes. I had just been doing like underglaze, under clear glaze
Mm-hmm.
up until that point, which is like when you see a pattern on a cup, chances are it's underglaze, and then you just clear glaze it. So it was kind of boring. But now I want to get more into glazes.
The glaze era has
The
begun.
glaze phase, yeah.
It's so cool. It definitely feels like ceramics was more of a thing. Even the elementary school where our children went was they had a huge kiln, and it was kind of like hidden
Wow.
back in the like cafeteria area. But it was talking to some of the teachers there. They're like, oh yeah, we had that, but that was so it was almost like shop classes or like the home ec style stuff. I just don't think it's as it's not the craft sort of education system doesn't seem what it was.
Yeah. It's a shame because it's such an amazing way to learn about mistakes. Like I think that was one thing that ceramics brought into my life that was so lovely was, I tend to only want to do things when I know I'm going to be really good at it. And like I had to just get really messy with ceramics, and it's so much about impermanence and non-attachment. I mean, stuff is going to fail left and right. Like you do the same thing the same way and it's going to turn out totally different. So yeah, it's a good lesson, especially for kids, because mistakes are so crucial to learning. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's not about avoiding mistakes. It's just about kind of taking them with grace. So crafts are such a like light, fun way to learn about that. I feel like.
It strikes me too as something very similar to like a process art as well. Like there's so
Yeah.
many kind of movements and it's like a performative sort of like language in a way. You know what I mean? It's about moving your hands and kind of there's a craftsmanship obviously to it that can be duplicated over time, and you learn a skill to it. But in so many ways, the final product is so much a witness to
Mm.
the process of how it's made.
Totally. It's such an
Right.
intense process. That's part of the thing I love about it is it uses like all four elements to their like most intense degree, like earth,
Ooh.
water, fire, air. You need like all of those things at their most extreme to create this finished thing. And it is such a process. It's requires so much patience and just knowing I can't rush this. Literally have no ability to rush this. Yeah.
There's a chemistry, there's a science behind it. I mean, that's such a Captain Planet sort of thing too. It's like they're all the elements combined. There was one more, right? What
Totally.
was that? There was like an abstracted Captain Planet element. This is
Oh
earth,
yeah.
air, fire, and then like
Love. Was it love?
was that right? Yeah, or something.
I don't
Was
know,
somebody have a love
probably.
ring? I don't know. There's something kind of like or like consciousness or something.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I dig that.
green,
Yeah.
green. You're just the power of green. Like what? That's not a power. That's from
Oh my
Ninjago.
god.
The it's so interesting. I mean, obviously it's ancient as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something that goes back to beyond civilizations, and then obviously with humanity through civilizations. I mean, you always find that that's so often with pottery was found at this dig site, and like it's a marker of time and
Yeah.
people and sort of things that are cultures that have come before, sort of
Totally.
having
And it
dealt with
hasn't
that.
changed much. It's really the same process, elaborated on, which is it's just so cool. I love that about it too, the ancientness of it. It's very, very cool. I tried there's this thing you can do called coiling where you make like these kind of long coils of clay and then you like build them and squish them on top of each other to make like a vertical form. And
Mm-hmm.
that I felt like this very like ancient part of me awaken as I was doing that, where I was just like, oh yeah, I've been here before, it's the coolest thing.
That's amazing. Well, it's something too. Yeah, I mean, the kids do or just from a dad's perspective, like with like Play-Doh and things like this. That idea of like the tactile sort of hands-on sort of creation idea. I think
Yeah.
there is something that's very primal about it. I think the kids just pick it up and want to do it, and to get so much out of it. There's probably a lot of emotional regulation and just that sort of like back to earth and sort of grounding. And I think in a way that we force ourselves to mature out of, or we have these sort of constraints on what it is. that we do.
Yeah.
But,
Or you think you have to monetize it. I think that's another thing is crafting, it doesn't have to be this thing that, becomes part of your capitalist ideals. It can just, be a nice release or place to rest. It's good for the brain and the body for sure.
Yeah. And then obviously, most people will know you from your musical work. So I think it's fun kind of starting off with ceramics, but how did you first come to music? I mean, I feel like we've had these conversations off air before, but it's fun to have a more formal recording version of it.
I started playing guitar when I quit sports as a kid, mostly soccer. I played up until I was like 13. And then just needed like a place to get my wiggles out. So I started taking guitar lessons, and I would just bring in songs and to this like very sweet little shop in Redondo that actually recently got torn down. I went and saw it, and like just the sign was up. It was so sad. It was really sad. I think it's going to be like apartments or something, but yeah, this guy Dan would teach me songs, and it was such a lovely outlet. I never really considered it like a life path. I think at the time, I was still so much a part of that generation of just like college was the mandatory step. There was no, don't get fantastical here. You want a job, you need a degree. Like, sure. So I graduated college or graduated high school and then went to Santa Monica Community College. And I think I made it like 3 weeks, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. This is not, school is such a skill. I think made me feel dumb, and I knew I wasn't dumb. And so I quit college and I went and moved to Hollywood and literally found my first band on Craigslist because I was like, oh, this will be a nice way to meet people, is to join a band. And it totally was. It was like this great 3-piece band called Facts on File. And I played guitar and keys, and it was such the 2 other people in the band were like 10 years older than me. So it was mellow. We weren't like touring a bunch. It was a lot of just like practice and LA shows. And I think we did some West Coast tours. But it got me like on stage. It got me in the studio. It got me just out of my comfort zone and kind of like helped me get used to being seen, which I think is like it's an amazing function of performance. I think because, it's one of those simultaneous hopes and fears that we're seen, but we really want that, but we're also like, oh God, don't look at me, like it's the scariest thing. But once you get used to it, it's cool, because I think we love seeing people be themselves and shine, and to feel like the momentum once I started doing that. Because once again, I didn't really set out to make music my career, but the ball just kept rolling, and I kept meeting more people. And eventually I left Facts on File and joined, I had met Lena Myers through the vintage store I was working at. I was working at this store called Squaresville in Los Feliz. And my boss, Stephanie Pia, who's an amazing photographer and person in general, she introduced me to her friend Lena. And that set us on this course I played in Lena's band Raw Geronimo for many years. And then that shifted into a band called Feels. And yeah, we played music together for like 10 years and are still great buds. So yeah. And then I started playing solo in 2015. This year is actually my 10-year anniversary of.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's exciting. What was your first solo show?
Yeah. It was at Hyperion Tavern. Do you remember that place?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't think they do stuff there anymore, but I will never forget it. I was nervous as hell. I played Simpsons behind me, like they had a projector, so I played Simpsons behind me. And I swore I'd never do it again. I was so nervous. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then the feedback was so lovely. Everyone was so supportive and amazing. So I did it again and again and again.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's fun when you have those sort of gimmicks or those things that, or not gimmick, but like a thing. Okay, if I'm going to get up there, I need a video. I need something to kind of keep the focus off.
My security blanket.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like I'm guilty of that still to this day. It's nice to like, okay, well they're not really there for me, but I got to give them something. They're going to get better. We had this epic show as No Age in Toronto at this like weird kind of like Dave and Buster's sort of like sports center. This was like, I don't know, 10 years ago. Amazing. And it was right down right downtown, right by the Rogers Center, like where like the baseball team plays, and it was like it's crazy. It's like be like playing like next to like this the crypto arena or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like there's with these crazy sort of places, but they just have this giant LED wall. Like I'd never seen anything as so big. It was like 2 stories tall, like the size of the whole stage. And they're like, we made this dumb graphic of this like logo of your band. It looks like a screensaver. It's going to bounce around behind you. You're like, that sucks. That's like so boring. Like, can we just like load up any other videos? They're like, yeah, whatever you want. So I, like after sound check, we were like sending the video guy, like just YouTube links. And we found this great one of Lisa Simpson, like just like, tripping out, I think I don't know if it was the Lizard Queen one from Fiji and Scratchy Land, but it was something like that with like the eyes just like blinking and stuff, and it became this really like almost seizure bots style kind of like animation thing right behind us, and it was great because she was so huge. And when you're like looking back, look later, get tagged in everyone's photos, like, oh, that's the best backdrop ever. It's
wow.
like Lisa's psychedelic trip for like 30 minutes behind us. It was really fun.
It's so fun to create like an immediate sense of familiarity. I think people love seeing new things, but if there is that element of like, oh, I know that's Lisa Simpson. Something like that can just like ease people in enough to be so receptive to the newness.
Oh yeah. I think it was making us laugh. The other thing too, I thought I was a new dad at the time, and I think I was just fine. I remember just seeing like the YouTube was a wild place of just like no IP enforcement, so it was just bad CGI of like every different character like running around. It kind of looked like a video game, but no one was playing anything. It was just bad animation. So
wow, that's awesome.
So learning songs, taking guitar lessons, was there something that you were setting out to do when learning guitar? What did you, like you said, you were kind of like hoping, holding the space and being seen, but musically what were your influences, or what were you first kind of aiming at when you began?
I had no goals with it. I think it was just something that intrigued me and felt like, a fun way to spend my time and use my brain. And I mean, music was the first thing that ever made me feel smart, because like I said, school was tough for me. I had a really hard time focusing. I'm not like a math person. It's just hard when you're kind of always being told you're wrong to feel like trying. It's tough. So, playing guitar made me realize like, oh, I can remember these songs. I know how to do this. And I remember that feeling of like, as soon as I was so sick of being bad at it and I wanted to quit, I got it. I like landed the G chord or whatever, like it happened. And I was like, oh yes, okay, we're getting there. Cause it is such a process. It's, it's such a fun, music is cool because it's so physical and mental. There's like this, you kind of have to be in the flow state to really like understand and like get to know it. So I think it introduced me to that in a nice way. And then I had no goals with it. It was just really exploratory. And I got my first laptop maybe 2 years later, 3 years later, when I was like 15 or 16. And that allowed me to, it came with GarageBand. So that allowed me to start like recording and writing in like a very real way. And I just remember having so much fun with that, and like using like a pack of bobby pins as a shaker and stuff, and just like messing around.
Oh man, that's incredible. I mean, it's really sort of everything you need to get started, like a starter pack.
I know, right? Yeah, and even the microphone just in the computer was like so good. You didn't even need interface or anything.
Yeah.
There's like that static, that shh over the whole thing.
High noise floor sort of thing. Yeah. Like,
just layers and layers of shh.
That's so much what like the old tape machines would do too. I was listening to so much Led Zeppelin over this weekend, and I love I think it's Led Zeppelin 3 has a lot of it. You kind of hear each like tape kind of coming like.
Wow! Oh, that's charming, isn't it?
It all comes in together. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. I'm glad they haven't like remastered those things out of it. You know what I mean? It's fun to hear all that kind of stuff, and it just makes it feel, again, it's handmade. This is made by people and not robots.
Totally,
these were people. Even it's Herculean as a band like that is. It's still there's a person in there. There's mistakes and flaws in the audio.
Totally.
So I'm obviously just endlessly fascinated by your process and kind of your experience and sort of translating a folk tradition and you know, in the music you do. I mean, I guess I was trying to think of like kind of where you got started, sort of inspirations there, and sort of how that's transformed over the years. I mean, you talk about playing in kind of more traditional sort of rock bands, and you know, I'm very familiar with feels as well. But where did the sort of the singular solo folk inspiration kind of come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always written songs on my own, and you know, never really thought they had a place in the world in this weird way. I think because I came up so much in the punk scene, like live shows to me were so the opposite energy. You know, it was very extroverted and very physical and very like, you know, everyone was kind of releasing in this amazing way. And then I started going to more quiet shows. I remember in particular, I saw Jessica Pratt open for Kevin Morby at the Echo in 2015. And that was the show that inspired me to book my first solo show, because I was just like, oh my God, I had no idea people wanted to sit and really listen to this kind of stuff. I hadn't, you know, I remember seeing Iron and Wine play, and it was just him solo at like the Hollywood Bowl or something. It was so incredible. Like it was just him on the stage. And that, you know, moments like that stick out in my mind where it's just like, man, like one person can be so powerful. And yeah, I mean, I had always had these, you know, voice memos and just like, you know, recordings in my back pocket. And at the time that I started playing solo, I was living in this incredible house of roommates. It was 4 of us. We were all Virgos. We were all musicians. We had a practice space in our backyard. Like it was just the perfect environment to really like explore myself more, you know, like sing a little more full voice. I always sang in like head voice because I didn't want to bother anybody. I was always in my room, you know, with a ton of roommates around. So I was just, you know, keeping to myself. Only child syndrome too, just like, you know, I just got to stay in my corner. But yeah, it's been really cool to like just explore that part of myself. And at the time, I think it was it just really busted things wide open. And it was kind of like, you know, when I started ceramics, like as soon as I started playing solo, people just showed up to support me in the craziest way. Like there was so much encouragement, and all of a sudden, I just felt this urgency. And these opportunities lined up where I was just like, all right, I'm just going to show up for all of this. The imposter syndrome was thick. Like, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm good. I'm just going to, I got the job, so let me show up for it. You know what I mean? But, you know, I think that like the universe provides in such an amazing way of, you know, giving you the opportunities that you're ready for. And so, you know, getting to like record my first record was so sweet. I did it with my friend Jeff Fertitti in his garage in Highland Park, and then, you know, upgraded to my friend Emmett Kelly. We recorded inside of his house. It wasn't in the garage, it was inside of the house. And then for August, my third record, third record was it was in Ty Siegel's home studio. So and then Geist was in a real studio. So I just like slowly, you know, climbed the ladder and just saw where it took me, and it was the coolest thing. And playing solo also allowed me to quit my day job. So it was, you know, Kevin Morby offered me my first solo tour in I believe it was in 2016. And we just went around the US, and that was the moment I was able to quit my job. And then, I signed with Sub Pop in 2017, and, you know, was able to get more support from that. Like it was just this kind of building thing that has not really stopped since. It's really cool. I've definitely, I feel like more and more, I'm more comfortable taking longer with the process. Like the record I worked on more recently took an entire year to record it. You know, obviously we weren't in there every day, but it just asked more time of me instead of, you know, you have a week in the studio, it's crunch time. It was a lot more relaxed, and I really appreciate that feeling. It's cool. And also for it to not be like, you know, financially detrimental or something. Like everything kind of lined up for it. Like it very much the pace wants to be slower, which feels really nice. Cause the world is just crazy. If you can slow down, more power to you,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Being able to take
Yeah.
that luxury of sort of taking time to make something and not feel like all your decisions are rushed or have to be kind of made
Totally.
right away.
Yeah.
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 It's amazing. That sort of supportive folk scene or it's kind of indie, sort of folk
Yeah.
world. It definitely feels like something that was, I think akin, to so many other kind of scenes, and it's
Yeah.
interesting, kind of people coming from bands and kind of going solo, and this kind of world of I don't know how to say it. I guess it feels very craftsman like in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's people
There's a lot
showing
to
up with exactly what they have, and and people kind of holding space for appreciating it, which is just such a gift. I mean, people's attention is, I think that's our most valuable currency. And to have people pay attention, it's amazing. I don't take it for granted for a second. It's something I really value, to the point that, playing bars is like, it's not a priority for me anymore. Like, I really like when the space can be super intentional and we know what we're getting into together, and we can really sink into the intimacy of a solo set. I think it's so cool to create that space. I even think of the show we played at Heavy Manners, where it's like the vibe is so intentional and everybody's seated, and it's so lovely.
Well, I think it feels so special for the audience too. Like they're really getting to see something that's very, very different, not something you would just, you'd see at any bar or club or something, you know what I mean? That feels like something much more sort of the time and place, and the audience sort of is treated to something very intimate.
Totally.
In
It's
ways.
beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing John Darnell as Mountain Goats in Pomona, or in the like mid '90s. He had just done this. What was the record? It was Nothing for Juice. It was this kind of, I don't know where Mountain Goats fits into the world of. It was probably earlier. It was before he had a band. It was before there was a band of Mountain Goat people. But I remember just being so blown away as a teenager by this kind of thing, and really loving Bob Dylan, and I always felt kind of sort of pulled by these like loud punk sort of noisy things, these Sonic Youth things and Fugazi, and this big sort of bombastic live experience, but then also just so disarmed. And so, you know what I mean? There's something so just bare naked and I think powerful and in the same type of way, you know what I mean? Where you'd have a band like Jesus Lizard sort of, exploding off the stage literally. And then just one person sitting in a chair with a guitar, you just can hold that attention. And there's something, I always felt this type of dichotomy of like with my musical tastes, even as a teenager, is that
totally.
Feeling, ooh, this is so exciting.
It was cool to watch how people from the punk scene responded so positively to what I was doing solo. It really is. I feel like all music is kind of saying the same thing in different ways. There's the same rebellion in all of it. So it's really nice to watch the crossover. I love when I make like a metal dude cry. That's just like my favorite thing in the world.
It's so exciting. I feel like that could be a song within itself. That's so good. Yeah, so somewhere across between fairies wear boots and I made what is it? I made an American cry. Something. It's awesome. Yeah, I was listening to so much Tom Petty this weekend as well. I had a whole kind of like falling down a rabbit hole thing, and
such a great songwriter, incredible.
Yeah, right. I mean, but like pulling from so many like obvious, like wearing his influences on his sleeve. I mean, there's so much Beatles in there. There's so much Bob Dylan in there.
Yeah,
and then yeah, it's a funny one. What and then he would eventually would go on to kind of be the center of the Traveling Wilburys. Like what would your Traveling Wilburys look like? Like if you could pull in a super group of past influences.
Wow.
What would that be for you?
Oh man, dude. What would that look like?
Because I feel like it was a thing where like Jeff Lynne from ELO was recording that Full Moon Fever record in the 80s, and they recorded it at Bob Dylan's studio.
Yeah.
So then you have Petty, ELO, Bob Dylan, and then then George Harrison just stopped by to say hi, while they're making it. And then I think at that point they're like, well, fuck it, let's just call Roy Orbison then. We're okay, we're all here, we're all hanging out. Like, we just keep the record rolling. This record's done, but we'll meet back next week, and we'll just bring whatever songs ideas you have.
Totally. I mean, at the moment, I'm kind of the next record I'm doing is quite full band, and so I have been thinking about what my dream team would look like. And maybe it's a little more down to earth, but the guy who produced it, Rob Shelton, on keys, for sure. He's such a shredding piano player and synth player. Carly Bond, who has a band called Myrna, like if she would play guitar and sing, that would be so sick. My friend Jesse on drums, he played drums on a ton of the record and is just so incendiary. And then Jill Ryan on flute would be amazing. These are like LA legends. These are, people in LA right now that like I would just love to play with. But yeah,
That's cool.
It is really fun to think about. I've always had the dream of collaborating with Bjork. I think that would just be a real dream and a half. And Jessica Pratt. I would love to sing with Jessica at some point. She doesn't do much of that, but I would love to do that.
But yeah, you put it out there, throw it out there into the universe.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I've been loving collaborating lately. I feel like I'm doing it more and more, and it just feels so great. I feel like you kind of spurred that on for me because we were writing together for a minute. It totally opened up my eyes to just how beautiful like another perspective is, like, and another skill set. Like we have such different complementary skill sets, and it's
that's so cool. Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I always come from such a deep like band collaborative experience. Like I could never really imagine writing on my own. I think I tried to sort of hold together like a self-titled band, and I was like, I just love playing with other musicians so much. I really was like, this doesn't feel honest to not give them all credit. Like they all need we need to just be a band. We just need to make this a name. Let's spend 6 months thinking of a name for this thing.
Totally.
Because I can't take credit for this stuff. There's so much fun in that collaborative sort of space. You know what I mean? I think for all of my years of playing, like that's where I really get excited, is in that sort of exchange of ideas.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And being in LA, you just have like your pick of the most talented people. Like it's just insane here right now how many heavy hitters we have.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there's never a shortage of talent, inspiration.
Yeah,
that's what was I going to say? Oh, so and then I guess just sort of seeing the crossover with ceramics and music. Like, do you find yourself like leaning more on one at one time, or then the other at another? Like, do you have an ability to sort of like toggle between the two, or do they exist simultaneous? Is like all creations are happening in a big push and then a big sort of like, I'm going to be lazy now for the next like month and not touch anything? Or do you find you work on one and then use the other sort of like as a different part? I guess like left brain, right brain sort of idea.
Yeah. Gosh, I laughed because being lazy is like one of my biggest fears. Like I do not know how to rest. That's one skill I'm really trying to learn right now, is how to rest. And ceramics helps with that because a lot of my life is spent waiting for opportunities. Like the way my energy seems to work, I don't do well with like reaching for things. I really do better if I have an invitation into something and then I can step into it. So, I spend a lot of time. I'm lucky. I'm self-employed and music supports me. And so in the waiting, ceramics is such a good friend because it is such a process. I try and throw on my wheel at least once a week. And then I spend the rest of the time, painting it and glazing it and bringing it to the studio and stuff. So, and then I sell stuff at shows. So, like instead of t-shirts, I have ceramics, and it's been a really nice integration into music. And I make way more money at shows now too, which is awesome. Like that rules. But yeah, I think they're always like toggling for sure. Like I'll take heavy ceramic breaks and I'll take heavy music breaks, and they always kind of fill in the gaps for each other. And I love all crafts. Like stained glass is next on my list. I really want to try stained glass.
I don't even know how you
and I do like I'll do like wood burning stuff, or just like painting in general, or I learned how to like quilt last year. It's, I feel like that's for later in my life, but I love a craft. I love like just working with my hand. Anything I can do while I'm watching TV, sign me up.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Idle hands sort of thing where you just, if you're just staying busy. Oh, do you find yourself like, in terms of inspiration for ceramics or sort of stuff in that world? Like, do you go to art shows, farmers markets, fairs, and things? I mean, where do you sort of find like digging into history and sort of things like that? Like, I'm so far away from that world of creativity. Like, where do you find? Like, I would imagine for music, you listen to other music and you can go, oh, okay, this inspires that. Or how do you find inspiration?
Yeah, I am obsessed with vintage everything, like housewares from like the 60s, 70s, like just kind of that like, Mary Mushrooms vibe, or like, the Pyrex with like the little flowers on it, like that kind of stuff. If I'm ever kind of tapped out for inspo, I just like, I'll go to like, there's a great antique mall called King Richard's that's like 4 stories. It's in Whittier here in LA. Highly recommend. I mean, places like that are so inspiring to me. And since starting to do this, I don't have to buy the thing. I just take a picture of it, and then I can kind of like recreate that in my world or whatever. It's really fun. And just the way that they did stuff back then, it was so warm, and it's just so appealing to me. Like, I can't even imagine walking into like a Sears or a JCPenney and like just that being what they're selling. Like the sheets, the curtains, everything was so colorful and inspiring. And now it's just, I mean, I feel like everything's gray these days. Everything's very
millennial
plain.
gray.
Yeah, millennial gray, man. I can't stand
design.
it. Can't stand it. My house is like yellow and green and orange. Like I just love color. So it's nice to. Recently, I redid my office, and I have been doing the curtains with vintage tablecloths. Like just I love finding ways to like make life beautiful. And you do have to get a little creative these days because, it's expensive, and it's also just hard to find the goods. So yeah, I love an antique mall or like a flea market or something like that. It's so inspiring to me. I love that.
So cool. Have you been to the Craft Folk Art Museum on Wilshire? Did you ever find your way over there? I don't know if it's still there. This was like I remember it opened up somewhere in the early 2000s. It's right across the street from LACMA, or it was. I don't know if it's still there, but that was a really fun one. It was kind of the first time I sort of understood folk art in that sort of way.
Oh, you know what?
Outsider
this
art,
this is actually where I went to that market and found the cup that made me want to try it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Here.
Is it still open? Is it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really cool spot.
That was the first sort of place I kind of think I really encountered outsider art or folk art in this kind of way of like the larger sort of world of just people making things, and they weren't necessarily brand named artists or didn't have art with a capital A in it. Like across the street at LACMA, there were these kind of handmade sort of things in it. And I think about taps into so much of like of a culture too, or of just creating. Just sort of creating things, and it's definitely been inspiring. There's another folk art museum collection in Wisconsin, and we went there on tour. It's in between Madison, just north of Madison, so like way up north. It was a woman from the Kohler toilets. I have to look up the name, but it was the Kohler, there's like kind of like billionaire family for generations. And one woman just decided, okay, with my money, here's what I'm doing. And I think she built like a 4-story airplane hangar in the middle, on this like beautiful lake property. And then would just buy whole artists like houses and then recreate them in this like airplane hangar sized thing. And it's one of the wildest things I've ever seen, of just sort of like I think, outsider with quotes around it, or this type of folk art, again, with all these kind of quotes, just the idea of people creating art for a lifetime without ever being part of a more institutionalized machinery of like the big art market, in those kind of ways. But this, but then a patron or someone like this would be able to then just like, okay, cool. Well, we're just going to buy all these things. And it's just this incredible sort of documentation of sort of the human creative thrust, in so many ways. I mean, it's
Totally.
really just beyond time. I think we were between Madison and Milwaukee. It was like, oh, we should stop and see what this is. And we talked to somebody there, and they're like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, how much time do you have? We're like, well, we have 4 hours. Like, oh, okay, you'll see a little bit. I'm like, what do you mean? We're like, that's a lot of. They're like, no, you won't you won't really see anything. Don't. And we kind of thought that's crazy. And again, once we got there, it's just from the smallest thing, like pinhead, like sculptures on the head of a pin kind of thing, just giant,
Wow.
painted cars and just things that are like just insane. So
So
I
cool.
I think I guess in the way of just kind of looking at like your body of work, and it's so great because of your musical output, you can kind of like it's almost like, or like Steve Keen, like this painter who does has had whatever 300,000 different paintings and their editions and things, but your art or your ceramic art is lives with your fans and lives off in these kind of ways. Like there'd be you could almost have like a retrospective, and whenever that's age appropriate or career appropriate, you know what I mean, where everyone
Yeah.
would have to photograph their pieces and sort of form it in some collection. I mean, do you look at it like that, or do these just seem like expressions and then they go off, or do you see them, or
I
how precious can you hold
This
it?
is such a great question, and I think it's so important to consider when you're creating something that's going to live with someone. And songs too, like I really try and be intentional about what I'm sending someone home with. I want to imbue that piece with love and just good energy. And with a song, and more and more when I record, trying to be conscious of how I'm feeling when I'm recording that song in that moment. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's like a really beautiful way to look at art as this extension of you that is going to affect people, and the way that you affect them is kind of up to you. So I think it's important to think about, and it's just like an amazing way that energy transforms and gets borrowed and lived on. And I'm obsessed with that concept, and I'm so stoked to just like explore how powerful that can be for the rest of my life. It's a huge thing for me. I love just being really conscious about what I'm sending people home with.
This energy that goes that like little pieces that kind of get spread
Yeah,
around, almost seeds in some ways, or
yeah.
inspiration. Have you
And we
heard
need all
from
the love we can get. My gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I mean, do you
Yeah.
hear from fans or from people who have your pieces and they show, and they tag you in it
Yeah.
and they show you how they kind of live with it and use it?
I love when
I
that happens.
imagine.
Yes, just yesterday, my friend Corey Rose, who plays drums in this band Color Green,
Mhm.
um, she posted on her Instagram like her morning ritual, and it's like her with her little dice cup, and then she makes like foam for her latte, and then gives her cat a little bit. Her
Yeah.
cat is like
The little cat cup.
drinking the
That's what she
foam.
gets.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I know. I should make her a little cat cup.
That's amazing.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that. That's really sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or and then the pup cup to go with it as well. If you're a cat person
Oh, there you
or
go.
a dog
Yeah,
person, you need the pup cup.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, it's wild. Yeah, and I think it's a really nice, conscious, intentional sort of way of addressing the whole merch idea of a band. I
Yeah.
mean, traditionally, there's these silkscreen shirts or stickers or zines or kind
Hmm.
of things from this punk sort of world. But I
Yeah.
think in kind of keeping with the kind of fragile sort of intimate nature of your music as well, like to be able to then purchase a piece of pottery, I think is
Yeah.
something that sort of reflects that sort of idea, and it's
It's
very
yeah.
personal.
It's fun to bring your values to the merch table. I was just talking to my friend Kim from that band Matt and Kim, and
Oh
she
yeah.
was talking about how they want to start doing more like bring your own shirt and we'll screen print it at shows, which I think
Yeah.
is so rad because like I feel like the quality of t-shirts isn't that great anymore, and they're wicked expensive. Like you got to charge at least like $35-$40 to make anything off a printed t-shirt. So I mean, you might as well just be conscious of where you're putting your dough. I think that's like that's gonna be so important for that, especially in America, the next 4 years of just like you
Well,
know,
yeah. The economy
yeah, working
around
together.
touring musician, being a touring musician or just touring
It's brutal.
and those kind of ways, or just being an artist in general or being a
Yeah,
musician in general, the whole
yeah,
economy surrounding that has definitely been um, evolving. I guess is a polite way to
definitely,
say
really
it.
quickly.
There's
Yeah,
a lot of things to kind of take into consideration like that. But I think being creative about what you sell and how you sell it is sort of nice. But you don't have your name on the cups, right? I mean, do you sign them on the bottom?
I
I
sign
suppose.
Slay on the bottom, Slay. So
Okay.
I do a little carving on the bottom.
Yeah, but you don't put your logo on the cup. It's not
No,
necessarily.
that's not those.
A branded piece of. You're not quite like the Kiss machinery of it all, where you can have.
Yeah,
all these
I went
things.
to a Shannon Lay show. All I got was this lousy mug.
That's it. Yeah. But maybe there would be a Shannon Lay inspired collection. You could get a whole like plate set and
oh my god,
cups.
That'd be cute.
You can do a whole thing. You could do.
I'm into that. Like that. Yeah.
Oh man, it's so crazy. I mean, on all these things that I mean, I think they're good problems to have. In terms of being a musician and kind of supporting yourself and finding those different avenues of doing that. I think the ceramics is obviously a noble idea. Where do you get the clay, or is that what they call it? Is it clay, or is it like?
Yeah, it's clay. It's I get it at Cobalt and Clay has it, and Green and Bisque has a really great shop. If you like need a place to get underglaze tools, sponges, they have everything there. They've got high fire and mid fire. So there's like, different ranges of firings. High fire is like the strongest form of pottery. And then mid range is where you get like the most true colors in mid range. Like high fire, it's a little more volatile. You don't know what is going to come out. But yeah, the clay is awesome. I just learned about it at Pasadena City College, and all the kind of ingredients in there. There's just all these things that are kind of pushing and pulling on each other. There's something that heats it up. There's something that cools it down. There's silica that is the glass that then like solidifies everything. It's such a cool thing. But you can also source your own clay. I would love to explore that at some point, because you can just like find. There's people out there in like New Mexico or something that have like their own clay caves. You're just like
wild, right?
It's so cool.
Right. Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah,
it's so cool. I know. And then there's like the Japanese, and I mean across all cultures that's pottery and ceramics really does exist. From like Latin American cultures to obviously Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and in Asia. But there's like the Japanese wabi sabi thing, right, where it's like the flaws are accentuated.
Yeah.
And, in this sort of way of like, think with like, what a great just simile or metaphor, for so many things in life, just finding those cracks and instead of hiding them, really just putting them on display.
Yeah. Like when they fill them in with gold, that's the coolest thing. Oh my gosh. Yeah. What a amazing way to look at brokenness as like a process of strengthening and beautifying and,
individuality and kind of a sign of really effort being exerted.
Yeah, that's when like knowledge becomes wisdom. Yeah, it's so badass. Yeah, rather
than just throwing it away and that's broken, like repairing it and kind of having that sort of like respect for the piece itself.
Totally.
Instead of being broken and stronger. I know that's always the joke about Gibson Les Paul necks, is that they don't really sound good till they've been broken, until the headstock's been snapped off. Then
they gotta go through it.
That's where the tone comes from all the glue it takes to repair a nice expensive Gibson headstock explosion.
Wow, totally. I mean, I'll never change my nylon strings again. Like I did it maybe I did it like 2 years ago, and I was just like, this is horrible. Because
you can feel the difference in it.
The sound was just totally different. Yeah, you got to let those things ride for sure.
That's great. Well, and you must not break them very often. I mean, I imagine.
Oh yeah,
the sensitivity of the play, and it's I know I've definitely subscribed to that even for longer tours with electric guitars and stuff. Like, if I'm not breaking the string, it's staying on there. Like I'll warm up during sound check and I'll kind of pull on them and I can feel with the ones that are going to go. And sometimes I'll preemptively take one out, just give it a mercy killing. So it doesn't pop in the middle of the show, but in general, it's like, no, they're good. The dirt's on there. It's doing something, just like, the wood and everything else absorbs the grease from your hands. And it's a patina that's developed over time with this organic material.
Totally.
It does make a difference.
Do you have a go-to string? What's your go-to?
Broken string, you mean, that I always break?
No, that, and if you have like a type of string that you prefer.
Oh yeah, Ernie Ball, super slinky, green pack.
Oh, nice.
The 10s, I've been using them.
10s, nice.
For decades.
Highly bendable. Nice.
Yeah. The G I feel like is always just breaking.
Yeah.
Any of those high ones would go, but G's on the Gibson style or Epiphone style. 3 3 and 3. Um, that G tuner always wants to bend and break and burst and is always going out of tune. There's something about it's like the furthest one away on the highest side, and I'm sure there's a physics to it. So different than the Gibson and 6 in a line, but that high G is always
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
always my issue. Yeah, I always had an issue with the G strings.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been so much fun.
Yeah.
Where do you like people to keep up on what you're doing next, and what are you doing next, and what should people be looking out for?
You can keep up with me on Instagram, Shanny2Dope, and I have a website, shannonlay.com, where I post all my shows too, with ticket links and such. I'm working on finishing up a record right now and about to tour up to the Bay in April. Going to do some shows in SF and Sacramento and San Luis Obispo and Healdsburg, Sonoma, Ojai. Going to play Ojai. But yeah, that'll be announced. I think today, actually, we're going to announce that. And then have some shows coming up. Going to play in Venice on March 6th with Corey Hansen. That'll be rad. And Michael Cronin at Permanent Records on March 20th. Yeah, gonna just keep kicking ass, taking names.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
taking the time. Rad.
Absolutely. Love you, dude.
Thanks. There she is. How lovely was that? Thank you, Shannon, for coming on. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Staying with me. Remember, distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate to, get your music up on the streamers. Own your own royalties. Collect your money there. You pay them, but if you use the code, I think you get a discount on it, and then, get all your music up there. Also, isotope.com. They got some good plugins. Go check them out. And for Miss Lay, you can go to Instagram, follow her there. Shanny2Dope is her name. SHANNY, numeral 2, DOPE. Shanny2Dope on Instagram, as well as her Bandcamp, shannonlay.bandcamp.com, and her website, shannonlay.com. She's got dates coming up. She's working on new records. Go see her. Go buy some pottery at the shows. You will not regret it. She's got a beautiful voice. She writes incredible songs. She throws an incredible pot. You can't go wrong. You're stoked. Go see her. All right. Have a good weekend. See ya on Monday.
It's so much about impermanence and non-attachment. I mean, stuff is going to fail left and right. Like, you do the same thing the same way, and it's going to turn out totally different.